Welcome people here and hello, welcome to my YouTube channel again. I'm GM Mainly here and now there comes another video of the Tuanalysis series. As you guys know, here we are trying to analyze a game of the viewer. No matter how strong he or she is, explain the things from openings, from middle games or end games, and all the things I can from a GM perspective. Obviously, you guys can feel free to ask questions, some way you don't understand, or some way you think is not clear enough. I really want to make sure this series can become, a useful thing for you guys, something you guys can learn from, and something that you guys can benefit from it. So, let's start here, and obviously, I hope you guys all enjoyed this series. So, the viewers here is Black. His name is Chess.01 on Twitch, and he was 1650 in USCF rating, which is the, I think, official rating in the US, And to be honest, it is pretty good. I think he should be at least around 2000 or 2200 in Chess.com, So the game will be, I think, fairly high level. I will try to explain things in depth and all things I can do. Feel free to ask me questions whenever you can, and feel free to give me some ideas or something that you want to ask for more. Sure? Okay, so let's go. So in the game here, he was Black. White play knife 3. G6. So the pure ideas here of this one, right? Normally, this one is a little risky, to be honest, to play. As you guys may not know, this lie is the ideas of Black trying to go for, I want to say, some kind of positions where it is not some opening mainstream. And somehow, you can try to look for some winning chances at own cost. C4, G7, D4. You see, right? Somehow now White can obtain a center fairly easy, and Black can only look for fighting against it later on. And as you know, it is against the opening rules, right? Yes, this thing in fact is not the opening principles. As we all know, we want to fight for the opening, fight for the center, right? And this one is not it. But as you get better, these things are definitely playable as some kind of thing here to allow you to just slowly, I will say, counter later on in the game. So here, d6, c3, knight f6. So now if he play e4, the line will be just getting back to the main line of the King's Indian, isn't it? Yeah, this is a modern defense. But in the game, so White didn't try that. The modern defense can be seen as e4 and d4 here, right? And now there comes the modern defense. Basically, the modern defense is is when White didn't play c4. If you play c4 here, the opening can simply be the King's Indian defense, the KID, which is a pretty funny thing about openings. It can simply be transposed. Right? Which is the game. The game here, G5. He tried a relatively rare lines. The main line is the E4 castles, bishop E2, E5. The orthodox variation, and then I think castles here and then here and here, right? And obviously, this is super famous. Super famous. In the game he played here, which is a bit rarer. The idea of the line is to go queen d2 and go for here, for instance, or trying to play this one to, prevent you from playing e5 easily. Since you got into the pin, right? The main thing here that Black can do, in fact, is just castles here, and like let's say e3, and you play knight here, and you play here, you play here, and you play here later on. e5 is the main plan of black, but you need to somehow be a bit cautious. What do you think about e3, then bring the queen out in the KD opening? So this one in fact is that type of stuff. In fact, so with e3, white kind of show his ideas to attack in the queen side. For black, we go for the king side attack here as usual, and the game will get quite complicated. But obviously, it is a very playable thing for sure. So in the game, as I see here, black play just 4, G5. This one now makes the game into, it's not like an unknown territory, but this one is pretty rare. The idea here is pretty clear. He wanted to play knight e4, right? And now e4 is not working at all. So why must be content with e3? It's a thing. But I mean, the main drawback here is that queen b3 can be a thing, you know? And the pawn bishop here is, you know, not really safe. Like white can always play here later on if he's prepared enough with tempo, isn't it? So in the game, he play queen b3, just mentioned, right? And now the game's leads to completely unknown territory. The main line is like e3, I think so, right? e3 and then castles and bishop, I think like d3, you would take with the queen, maybe d7, castles, and here I think she find like this one, which is, you know, pretty uncommon for sure. Pretty uncommon for sure. But I think should be playable as well. Somehow you can see here that your king looks like a bit weakening, right? But this bishop here can be killed. And the plan by black can be like e5 later on, or can be even like e6, f5, or queen e7. And I think the progression is quite double-edged. In the game, play queen b3. Right? And somehow, black play b6. This kind of ideas here, somehow, I can tell you, is not very normal. So, normally, in this line, queen b3 will not be the best, since black can just offer the pawn right away. And this one for me here is a much better attempt to do so. Why? Obviously the main thing can be seen is here, right? But now black got some nice play by rook b8, and here you got castles exclamation mark again. Black is just much faster in development here, and that's the main thing. Although he's now 2 pawns, right? But it's not so easy here for white now to play accurately. b3, for instance, can be very bad. Due to rook a8, b7, and c5. And then black is kind of winning already. Queen a5 is a plan, c4 is a plan as well, knight g4, knight h5, whatever it is. And black is, I think, already winning. No? I knew it. But obviously, as mentioned earlier, so the thing here is that why just spend so many tempos on the queen and developing the queen side? His king is still here, right? And that's why here, after this one castles, not only, you know, you can take the pawn here later on with some activities for your rook, but moreover, you are faster development here, and c5 will lead to some very annoying play. You see? In the game, so black play b6, which I will say is not really worth it. But if you want to defend a pawn, I can suggest maybe like queen c8, I think so. For me, this looks like better options. I don't like b6, you know, since in some situations, you can really weaken up these diagonals. And you know, white always has ideas to play like d5 and d4, you know, and this square can also become a weakness. You see? So if you play this book already, b6 will not be something so fun, since you just weaken up some, light squares a little bit, isn't it, in the game? So he played b6. Text here in the game. See with bishops, correct? e3. Okay. Now the game is fine. Castles, bishop e2. So here in the game, black went for a wrong plan. He played g5, which surprised me a lot. Something I want to tell you is that, first of all, it is always known that you don't want to push the pawn in front of your king, right? Which is normally considered, a bit weakening. Second, g5 is only possible, let's say here for instance, which is still fine. Since now, so bishop on g3 and then the pawn push here is not working, and black can go for this one and trade the bishops, But here, with this idea slash g5 here, somehow not only now it doesn't do anything at all, but moreover, it can even weaken up your king side a little bit. I will show you a sample line that how things can be so annoying. For me here, g4 can be extremely annoying. This one. This seems like a very strange move, right? But this is very strong, to be honest. Why? The reason is simple. Now the queen side is open. The king side is open. White can always go here to castles, And if you take here on g4, rook g1 can be a thing, and then h4 will be next, isn't it? And suddenly, your king is in trouble. If you rotate the pawn here, let's say here for instance, right? h4 is next, and white can try to open up the h file, And then your king will obviously feel kind of comfortable, isn't it? So that's why here this thing looks a bit annoying, and that's why g5 for me seems like a wrong options. Although, to be honest, it's not so easy to react against that move, isn't it? In the game, g5. So, by the way, if you guys don't find my explanation clear enough, or if you want to understand more, don't hesitate to ask me some more questions. Can black go to h3 in g4? Very good questions. I think you mean here, right? Here and h3, right? This one I think is a pretty nice one. But then, I don't know, rook g3 can be an option here. Also, castles can also be an option as well, The thing is that somehow the g5 is open, which always create something not so fun. g4 sadly is not good here, since now all of a sudden, this pawn on g4 is a new target. Yeah, in the long term, f3 can be a plan, and as you can see, black is not in time to create anything to the king, but now your king is already kind of open. You see it, right? So, this one wouldn't be fun. That's what I can tell you. The thing, to explain things, in the easiest way, now white can have the option to castles here. And, somehow now your pawn looks a little... if you castles here, let's say, if you castles, if you play, I will mention a simple, a simple movie like a5, whatever, right? Play castles right now, you can play g5. Now, so g4 will not be something special, and then it is fine for you. But the main thing I want to mention here is that g5 is pretty useless. What's the plan of g5? g4, but knight e2 can be played. And attacking here with the pawn storm can be a bit tricky since your king is here, right? So g5, although looks like a thing to expand the position, it doesn't come up with a good plan, isn't it? And that's why for me this one is slightly inaccurate. not just something that can create some potential winners for you. It doesn't come up with a really good plan. You understand, right? Like if right now your king is on the queen side and his king is here, g5, g4 is good. But with your king on g8 and his king cannot, I mean he's not castle yet, g5 sadly is a little bit unnecessary. You understand me? I will try to explain things like as deep as I can. Back to the game here. So he played like knight e5 here, which is a little strange. This thing, in fact, is only good if you can trade the bishops, but sadly you cannot, and the knight can kick away very easily. But that's why this thing is called like a one move trick. And normally, when you get better, this thing need to be avoided. 57, obviously good. 32, 37, nice. Obviously, you can play here right away, like here or here or here. But in game, you play here, which is fine too. Castles, e6, perfect. Knight b4, c5, exclamation mark. In fact, c5 is very strong. The thing is simple. You have bishop pair, right? And when you have bishop pair, always remember me that you will want to open up the position, isn't it? So things to do is to try to open up the bishop in g7 right here, and now c5 you can achieve that. So it's nice. In the game, knight c2 was play, defend a pawn, right? If you take on c5 here, for instance, so okay guys, for you guys questions, I just asked you a little bit. You got 3 different recaptures, 1, 2, 3. Which recaptures here you guys prefer? I will also ask questions during the session, since I want you guys to, you know, also understand things in a deep way, and also make the, I would say, session become more instructive and fun. Okay, good question, chess pawn. I will answer later on. I understand why, in fact. So here there are 3 ways of recapturing c5, right? So first of all, the thing is hard. Actually, it's hard to say here which capture is bad. Both 3 moves here should be fine. For me, the worst here is dc5. Since now you can play like maybe knight to c6 here, maybe, and then the bishop f3, and I think he should be fine here, I feel. bc5 is also fine here, since now you can have these ideas, right? But once again, he got this move, which is a bit annoying here, since queen here is impossible, isn't it? So that's why here I think for me, this is the best, c5. Not only you get with tempo, you know, but then it just put pressure on him right away. Queen d1 is an instant material loss. But that's why queen a3 is a must, right? And you can play queen here again, and I think you can see how strong the bishop pair can be, isn't it? So for me, this one is the best. In fact, both 2 pawn recaptures are both fine, you know. But then the thing is that he got this very nice ideas here, which ruin our ideas a little bit. Obviously, if you play like knight c2, right? This one I think is winning on a spot for us. This winning on a spot. Like here, it looks just crushing me, right? But sadly, he got knight c6 here, which ruined the party. So, okay, next. So earlier here, this one is a thing. So this one is the question of chess pawn. He said that here the engine prefers c5. Obviously, it is understandable. I mean, this is definitely the best move. You put pressure on here right away, you know. And moreover, the thing which is better about this move is that you can put your knight in a better square. Let's say you play here, right? You play b6, b5 here, and you can put your knight on c6, which is better and more active square compared to d7. Now this one can be a thing here, and your knight here is also better placed compared to the, I wouldn't say 27. Simple as that. Also, here as you can see, right, with the knight d5 here, so c5 looks pretty good, since he doesn't have any good way here to not take here. Like he basically must take here, right? And then we can obtain these ideas here, which give us, I would say, a fairly easy, playable, and pleasant positions in the game. So he plays c5 here, c2, right? So here you can, I mean, somehow now the pawn is covered, right? And it's not so easy here to just open up the things. Apparently, now you can play like this one and go cd4, right? Which wins a pawn. But in the meantime here, so you need to part with your bishop pair, and your king's looks a bit open. So white can have some counterplay. I'm pretty sure black is still better. So the bishop here looks pretty strong, right? But then somehow it's not too clear, especially when your king is a bit weakened. So in the game, he played bishop g6 first, which I really like. The idea here is to, like, maybe prevent like e4, maybe preparing like f5, f4 if you want to. So this one, although it's like a retreat here, but I kind of like the subtle moves. The idea is to prepare for some kind of pawn push. In the game, bishop f3, rook b8, perfect. Rook here seems to be much more natural, but then you can see here that you want to put pressure here, right? So if you play here, to the b pawn right away, and your rook here can be in the b file instantly, right? But this one sometimes is called the mysterious rook move. In the game, a4, and you play a5. This one I think is not so necessary here, since I don't think he can play a5 so easily, right? If you play, let's say, king h, for instance, play here, right? Take here with the b pawn, and then suddenly the b file belongs to you, right? That's why I don't think that a5 is needed, since his idea is not the best one. As I mentioned earlier, so a thing that is pretty nice when you're trying to see the moves is that you want to ask yourself, what is your opponent's threat, right? So here, if I say a thing here, and then it can be seen quite clear that e5 is not that strong right away. Well, I mean, the thing is that the game is pretty high level. It is from, I think, some 121 to 22 on Ratchet.com, at least. And that's why I need to explain things deeper and harder a little bit as well. Obviously, it's not so easy to understand all the things here, but as I mentioned earlier, I will try my best to explain things in depth and trying to, answer everything I can. So the game here, a5. Bishop here in the game. So, I don't know, I feel like you can go f5 and go for some pawn push here. But somehow in the game, only now, like took on c2. For me, it's not the right way. Like, if you want to take here, you should take earlier. Now, it may not be something so, I mean, the best one, but I think it's also playable for you. Okay, so take here, takes, and takes it okay. f3, back home. Rook d1, queen c7, defend a pawn, right? Understandable? For me here, so I would prefer knight to c5. This thing is a bit advanced, actually. I can only say that, like, here, so there are so many holes in the white camp, right? Here, and it should be quite nice if your knight can get into these squares. So I simply want to retain the knight on the board so that I can still go for some of the tricks. the knight, isn't it? Play like here in the game. We can try this one, and then maybe you don't have the knight anymore, and your pawn here can be some weakness. You understand? I knew the game is not so easy, but I will try my best to explain things, you know? So in the game here, the bishop e5. Knight e5. In fact, this is not too bad. But please remember me, you know? When you are in a position, like, you know, when you, before you want trade pieces, please consider it twice. I can tell you that you may not want to trade into the opposite color position. I mean opposite color bishop positions. As you know, in the endgame, so that gives the defender the most chance to defend, isn't it? So that's why if you can, you may not really want to trade the knight here. So once again, I think the better try is like knight c5, and then you can play rook c8 and slowly bring things out, you know? In the game, knight e5 looks like a little, I think a little like, not so precise. So in the game, knight e5 was played, rook a3. You know, this thing is not something so easy as well. In my level, it's understandable, but obviously, like, this card rook left here seems a bit unnatural, right? But this is the best move. f3, takes with the rook here, d5. Makes sense. You wanna go for the queen. b3 and d4. Here, black is doing very good. Not only because he's a pawn up, but moreover, the bishop is a bit dead, right? So now, I mean, the idea is like f5, go for the pawn push, isn't it? Queen e4, queen c5, rook d3 here, rook d8. You see it, right? Here, so basically, both sides just go for slow things here and ready for some kind of, like, you know, some slow stuff. In the game, so g3, rook here, decent move here, opting for f5. If he's not careful now, let's take in g2, you know, f5, and you can see now, right? If looking at e4, let's say here for instance, see that? Suddenly things look perfect for us. Suddenly. I know. Queen c5 actually is very nice ideas here. Like, you know, sometimes if you're not careful, let's say here, right? You can play c5. Bring bishop back home, and then he can create some kind of counter play. I agree with that. In the game, so he play here, he play f4, which is also very precise too. He stopped e5 from black. In the game, f5 was played, f3, g4, g2, h5. Now, in fact, it's not too easy here to find the best move here, in fact. For me, the best way to play is to go for like e5 for instance, and open up the e file. As you can see here, now his rooks are pretty tied up, right? To defend our pawn. That's why e5 here can be a nice thing to do, and then we can try to invade in the e file. In the game, play h5 first. It's fine too. h3, e5, great. And black is doing very well. This here, queen e5, very nice too. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the game is pretty high level, so we got some nice ideas here from both players. Bishop here, and this one, perfect. This is called like a maneuver, right? When you want to get the bishop here into a really good squares. Defend a pawn and attack the king at the same time. And this is worth an exclamation mark. I wouldn't say it's like super high level, you know? Like the game is only like 1650 USCF, so it should be like 21 to 2200 rating. Not so high level, but should be not so easy to explain. Considering that last time we have done some kind of 800 level game, you know. But this game is much harder. In the game here, bishop d5, king g7, red, and suddenly take here is not working, right? And you can win better rook as well. In the game, king h2, e3, perfect. And now f4 next. Black is completely winning. e1, f4, perfect. The play is very good. Could be 2, this here, and grab 2. Nice play, my friend. Nice play, my friend. The play is perfect, and now this is over, isn't it? Now it's no defense at all. And somehow you just exploit things very, very nicely. What I can say here is that Black just had some really nice technique. At first, he win a pawn on d4, right? Like here, for instance, and then he's slowly trying to bring his pieces up. He played d5 here and played d4, and this pawn kind of tied up the white pieces, you know? And somehow, after that, the rook here are all tied up in the d file. Black start attack here with f5, e5, and then it forces the operation to be opened up. And somehow here, as you can see here in the game, right? The plan was super successful. And if I hit, it's very nice as well. In fact here, obviously, I'm pretty sure there are some moments when you can do better. But then I think in the game, for your level, this game is the best. Did white have h4 at any point to create chances? I don't think so. For me, I don't see any rules placed when h4 is a thing. Like here, so e5 looks very strong and h4 just like close up operations, which doesn't create anything at all. h4 can be done, I think, earlier. Let's say here. I think so. Like here, for instance. In fact, white in the game, he didn't go for any kind of play at all, which is pretty bad. Let's say you play here, right? So you play here right now, and then white can be in time to create some kind of play. And you know, it will be fairly annoying for you to defend, isn't it? So somehow in the game, so although your plan is pretty fine, your opponent is losing yet. But you need to find something accurate to do in the meantime. And in the game, he failed to do so. So one thing about defense we all know is that active defense is always easier than, a passive defense. And in the game, white must go for that. Somehow he just stick to some, pretty passive play, and he was punished, isn't it? I think h4 here can be done in plenty of situations. But sadly, white didn't even try to go for that thing for sure. But as I mentioned earlier here, so you play a good game, you find some nice plan. But, sadly, these plans are not just enough to win games. You need white to also play something wrong too. And in the game, he offers some wrong plan, isn't it? So, what I can say is that somehow in the game, I would say that somehow the opening doesn't go so well for you. As you can see earlier, right? The line is fine, but then the thing with g5 is a bit wrong. Some advice is that you don't want to push the pawn in front of your king, especially when you have castles and your opponent hasn't. Yes. Somehow, and also here, why should I have gone for this one? He missed that. In the game, somehow, so he just allowed your bishop pair to range the supreme, and you are up a pawn here. In fact, white is not losing yet, but he needs to create counterplay instantly, which sadly he failed to do so. Like here, bishop d7 is obviously better, right? And rook ac1 and b3, and slowly put pressure on this pawn. But sadly in the game, he just kind of lose without a fight. That's how things can be. Even later on, I think white can still try to create chaos by h4, but he missed that. And literally make the game to be something like a one-set affair. And for me here, for instance,
for me, so white must play rook e1, queen e2, and prevent you to play e5 at own cost. But then he missed that, and he just let you to be able to do things well. Okay, thank you Cham1977 for tier 1 subs as well. Okay, so you understand the ideas here, right? So for chess pawn, do you have any other questions about the game? And do you see my analysis clear enough? Like, I know that the games are not too easy, but I try my best to make the game become like insightful, become like understandable, and something that you guys can understand for sure. For you guys who cannot understand, I think you can watch again and like slowly trying to like swallow own ideas. I can tell you that. So I hope that you guys can find this video helpful and instructive. I will try and come back with a series like once or twice per week, and hopefully this one can become something that we can all learn and improve together, isn't it? Yes, my friend, it's the same myth of Fabio Hikaru earlier with F8, right? See you in another videos, and hopefully you guys give me some feedback. Goodbye.